Our story begins with our protagonist Zhuang Wu learning to code and design on his own. He didn't have a team and single-handedly designed a game. Tiredly, he leaned back in his chair, assuring himself that in 2 more months he would be done, and his efforts would undoubtedly bring him fortune. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Ma Chun-chun. He answered the call and Ma demanded to know when he intended to pay his rent. He asked her for a few more days, promising that his game would earn him substantial money by then. Ma reminded him that she had been hearing this for 3 years. Only 10 people had bought his previous game, Doomsday, and the sales of P-Man were even worse, as she was the only buyer. He replied, somewhat sadly, that it was simply because they lacked good taste. Ma retorted that he was the one with poor taste and warned him that if he didn't pay by tomorrow, he should prepare to be evicted. Checking his balance, he found he only had 558 RMB. The sight was frustrating, but he figured if he was thick-skinned enough, Ma wouldn't be able to do much. Resolute, he began typing again, planning to speed up his work and finish the game quickly. Suddenly, his computer shut down and a surge of numbers appeared on the screen. Messages about designing the monster's image, finalizing plots, adding more codes, and fixing bugs popped up, surprising him. Confused by what was happening and why his design seemed alive, he received a warning that the system was overloaded. Then, his computer case crashed down, smoke billowing out. He thought with despair that his life was over, but he noticed a strange light still glowing on his computer screen. The screen displayed an interface announcing the release of a new fantasy world. Releasing platform is on Earth. The progress bar started at 15%, jumped to 30%, and soon it reached 100%. Upon completion, bright lights emanated from his computer. He tilted his head to avoid the blinding beam and his surroundings started to shake uncontrollably. Realizing it was an earthquake, he rushed to the door, flung it open, and dashed out of the building. Once outside, he was stunned to see trees erupting from the ground, crawling up the buildings. He wondered if he was dreaming because the trees looked strangely familiar. The crowd around him was panicking, trying to make sense of what was happening. Someone pointed to the sky, exclaiming about an unidentified flying monster colliding with a helicopter. The collision caused the helicopter to explode and both it and the monster plummeted to the ground. As people shouted and fled from the falling debris, a little girl was pushed over and fell to the ground. As she opened her eyes, she saw the monster hissing at her. He was stunned to see it because it was the monster he had designed. Its name was a hippogriff with an eagle's upper body, a horse's hindquarters, and feathers as hard as steel. Its danger level was sea level, and its special ability was the ripple scream. The hippogriff stood up and screamed angrily at the people. He ran toward it, knowing it was a bad situation. The hippogriff opened its mouth while looking at a little girl. She closed her eyes in fear. Fortunately, our protagonist grabbed her in time and dragged her away while the hippogriff started to use its ripple scream. He covered the little girl's ears, knowing that he needed to, but he felt pain when he heard the scream. Suddenly, the ground shook uncontrollably. The hippogriff stopped when it heard something running towards it. When the hippogriff looked back, it saw red shining eyes coming at it. It was another furious monster. Then, it stabbed the hippogriff before it could even react. He saw this and realized that it was the monster named Unicorn Wolf. It was the overlord of the prairie, its horn sharp and strong. Also, its danger level was B level, and its ability was Lightning Strike. He slowly closed his eyes, guessing that he wouldn't have to pay the rent anymore, then collapsed. Later, he opened his eyes when he heard a beeping sound and was surprised to see that he was in a hospital. He sat up and saw the little girl he had saved. He wondered if all those things he had just seen were real. He grabbed the remote near his bed and turned on the TV in front of him. Li Xiaomeng, the reporter, announced that currently, the height of the trees was over 5,000 meters and that they were just at the tree's waist when something flew towards them. It attacked the reporter, causing the camera to turn off. In the next news segment, the reporter informed everyone that professionals had already dived down 1,000 meters into the giant hole, and that they should see what they had discovered. The camera spotted the red glaring eyes, and it attacked the cameraman, causing the camera to turn off once again. On the next channel, the reporter told everyone that it was an emergency announcement. In response to the crisis of humans, they begged the players to report their identities at the players' lobby. He wondered why they needed players, then remembered the hippogriff, unicorn wolf, sky tree, and abyssal pit. It made him wonder why they looked exactly like the settings in the new fantasy world he was creating. Suddenly, an interface popped up in front of him. It showed our protagonist's name, Zhuang Wu, that he was at level 1, and his profession was game designer NPC. Currently, he didn't have a title, his HP was 100, MP was 0, strength was 9, agility was 11, intelligence was 12, perception was 9, undistributed was 0, and a note stated that the average human had 10 attribute points. Wu wondered if the game he designed had invaded the Earth. He clicked his inventory, but the interface showed a note that NPCs like him were unable to use the storage panel and skill panel. He tried to click the other buttons, but the interface showed a note that he was unable to use the change profession system. He was sad because he thought he was a peasant, and as a game designer, he didn't have an identity. Suddenly, someone opened the door, and he immediately lay back in bed when he saw a girl. His landlord, named Ma Chun-chun, told him to stop pretending and reminded him that the TV was still playing. He awkwardly asked Ma why she was there, but Ma asked him back if he thought she wanted to come and explained that the hospital had informed her to come. Wu told Ma that he knew she treated him the best, but Ma told him that it was just because if he died, no one would pay her rent. The little girl woke up and looked at him, trying to recognize him. Then, the little girl hugged him happily, calling him dad and told him that he was finally awake. Ma angrily asked him if he already had a child, but he shouted at Ma to let him explain. Later, after explaining everything, Ma understood and told him that the little girl might have lost her memory, so she would help the little girl register her lost child status. Before the little girl's parents could pick her up, he would have to take care of her. He seized the opportunity and asked Ma if she could lower the rental fee. Ma replied, sure, and angrily grabbed the receipt. She then told him to pay her the medical fee first, which totaled 8,000 RMB. This left him stunned and shocked because of the price. After the disaster occurred, humans resorted to using nuclear bombs against the Sky Tree and the Abyssal Pit. However, they failed to triumph. Instead, they lost control of the sky and relinquished half of their territory. Now, the fate of mankind rests in the hands of the players. Half a year later, in Zhuang Wu's house, Wu observed a little girl trying to lift a shield, offering it to him joyfully while calling him dad. He patted Meng Meng's hair, reassuring her that she was a good girl. Meng Meng was a temporary name that Wu had given her. He had attempted to use this name online to locate Meng's parents. Although he received responses, they were from individuals wanting to adopt Meng or someone pretending to be an uncle, claiming that Meng's parents had perished in an accident. He resolutely asked the man for Meng's real name, but the man retorted, asking him if the little girl's name wasn't Meng Meng. He further claimed that thanks to Zhuang's report, their city had apprehended a large group of child kidnappers. 6 months had passed and Meng's memory was still fragmented, with her parents yet to come and collect her. Fortunately, Meng was a well-behaved child who often helped with chores, though she often ended up accidentally breaking things. This infuriated Ma, resulting in Wu being charged for repair fees, 1,000 RMB for the television and 3,000 RMB for house repairs. Wu had once considered sending Meng to an orphanage, but when she tearfully called him dad, he was moved to comfort her, telling her that they should go home. The new fantasy world comprised two main monster areas, the underground and the wilderness. The underground monsters were notably formidable, while the wilderness monsters were marginally weaker. Wu arrived at a prairie near S City. He placed his shovel on the ground and began to dig, not stopping until he had reached the hidden monster. The creature lunged into the air to attack him, but Wu defended himself with his shield. He then gripped his shovel tightly and struck the monster, breaking the creature's horn in the process. A notification popped up, announcing that he had killed a jackalope. However, as an NPC, he was unable to gain experience points. After completing the jackalope hunt mission, a notification appeared indicating he had slain over 10,000 horned jackalopes, earning him the title Bunny Slayer. Exhausted, he lay on the ground, relieved that his task was finally over. Being a game designer, Wu not only created plots for players, but also devised many for NPCs. Originally, the Bunny Slayer title was specifically intended for an NPC. According to the plot, an ordinary NPC, after slaying more than 10,000 jackalopes, would trigger a hidden plot and emerge as the hero of the new fantasy world. Alongside the players, they would embark on a crusade to slay the Demon King. Half a year ago, after Zhuang Wu discovered the NPC on the prairie, he endeavored to hinder him from hunting jackalopes. Regardless, the NPC continued to slaughter the creatures. Wu mocked the NPC, warning him not to blame him for the consequences of his own actions. Wu dug traps in the prairie to ensnare the NPC, used jackalopes as bait to tire him, and even lured a fang boar to the prairie. The creature attacked the NPC and flung him away. As a result, the NPC ceased to appear on the prairie. Consequently, the world's hero was on the brink of replacement. Later, in the S City players' lobby, many players of varying levels gathered. Wu barged in, holding a dead bunny, which stunned the crowd. As he walked through the lobby, the people discussed his title, Jackalope Slayer, and criticized his cowardice for merely hunting the lowest level monsters instead of venturing into the underground dungeons. Wu was irked, not being a player but a game designer. He stopped at Lao Zhang's Spicy Rabbit Head shop. Lao Zhang, the owner, was known for his special dish, Spicy Rabbit Head. This item, once consumed, would increase a player's movement speed by 5% for 5 minutes. He informed Lao that he had acquired the jackalope he sought. However, Lao, whose business had been struggling lately, offered him some rabbit heads instead. Wu accepted the plate of rabbit heads with gratitude, oblivious to a girl observing him. The NPC, Lai Qiuya, revealed herself and he was surprised to see her. He was elated that a key character had finally appeared. Being the game's designer, he was aware that Lai Qiu was not an ordinary NPC but one of the few gods in the game. According to the plot, after killing 10,000 jackalopes, Qiuya should consider him as determined and strong-willed, thereby blessing him to become a hero. He addressed Qiuya as a goddess and implored her to bestow her blessing quickly. However, she questioned why he had killed the rabbits, which she found adorable, leaving him confused about the apparent plot deviation. Qiuya, fuming, labeled him the Bunny Slayer. She grabbed his hand, scolded him for the mass killing of the cute creatures, and then proceeded to violently throw him to the ground. As she vented her anger by kicking him, even Lao, the owner of the spicy rabbit head shop, was too frightened to intervene. Another player noticed the commotion and recognized Qiuya. They wondered whether Wu had provoked her or harassed her inappropriately. Wu, being assaulted, was perplexed, wondered shouldn't he have become the hero? Had the game altered itself during this time? Suddenly, a notification popped up. It revealed that, due to his massacre of jackalopes, he was cursed by the goddess Lai Qiuya. As a result of the curse, he was now ostracized by the world, stripped of his human identity, and transformed into a demon. The interface opened his character panel, showing his new race as demon. His current HP was 35 out of 200, MP was 100 out of 100, Strength was 13, Agility was 15, Stamina was 14, Intelligence was 12, Accuracy was 13, and he had 0 undistributed points. Wu was astounded but not entirely displeased, as the initial attributes for a demon were higher than those of a hero. He thought the ordeal might have been worth it. With tears in his eyes, Wu professed his love to Qiuya, but she dismissed him as freaking trash. He looked up and spotted something he was not supposed to say, prompting Qiuya to kick him hard, reducing his health to 30. Later, after recomposing himself, Wu realized that becoming a player unlocked previously inaccessible functions. He was pleased as it provided more convenience and spared him the burden of carrying many items during hunts. He opened the skill list and saw Demon Imitation at level 1. This skill frightened weaker demons into immobility. It had a cooldown of 60 minutes and required 20 MP. The other skill, Demon Transformation at level 1, enabled him to assume a demon form, significantly boosting all attribute points. Its duration was 30 seconds, the cooldown was 24 hours, and it required 80 MP. His new race had talents that provided extremely high agility and defense, specialized in dual-wielding weapons, and had excellent night vision. A notification revealed that demons could not change professions at the player lobby. Upon reaching level 10, he would receive a profession-changing mission. Furthermore, the system would announce his new race to the world. It asked him if he wished to hide his name. Wu clicked yes, and a notification immediately congratulated the S-City unknown player for being cursed by the goddess and obtaining a rare race identity, thereby unlocking a hidden plot. Other players also saw this and couldn't believe it. They, too, desired to be cursed by a goddess and planned to congratulate the anonymous player, unaware that Wu was the player in question and was nearby. Some even wanted to supplicate themselves to the goddess, which amused Wu. Meanwhile, in the Player Management Association's building, the person seated in the chair, President Lai Qiu of the S-City Management Association, also received the notification about the new race. He asked his secretary if anything major had occurred in their city recently. The secretary responded that their city's Thunder Dragon Guild had recently cleared a B-rank underground dungeon. Lai Bingyun, the secretary, assured Lai that her reliable sources confirmed the guild hadn't interacted with any goddess, and the Cloud Soar Guild and Blue Goat Guild hadn't recently attacked any dungeons. Lai inquired about any unusual events in the player lobby, and Bingyun mentioned a player known for hunting jackalopes had angered an NPC and suffered a severe beating. When Lei asked if it involved a kid named Zhuang Wu, Bingyun was surprised, asking if Lei was also keeping an eye on Wu. Lei explained that he happened to know Wu's father, then directed Bingyun to locate Wu when she had time. As Wu was known to be scared of dungeons, Lei suggested that she recruit him into their backup team. Bingyun affirmed that she understood. Later, in the prairie, he held 2 shovels while eyeing a jackalope burrowed in the ground. Suddenly, it sprang from its hole and charged at him. As it neared, he skillfully swung his shovel down, thumping it onto the ground. A notification popped up, indicating he'd slain the jackalope, awarding him 10 experience points. Now at level 1 with 10 out of 100 experience, he felt a wave of satisfaction at finally gaining experience. In past encounters with jackalope hordes, his only choice had been to flee. This time, however, he was eager to face them head-on. After his transformation into a demon, all his attributes had improved, making the jackalope's movements seem painfully slow. When one of the jackalopes attacked, he easily blocked it, smugly informing it that its efforts were too slow, he could anticipate its every move. He seized its ears, grinning ominously as it collapsed. The subsequent notification revealed that he'd leveled up to level 2. Gazing at the defeated jackalope, he recalled his racial abilities. Without hesitation, he activated his demon intimidation skill, shocking the jackalopes and making them faint from fear. He vanquished the prone jackalopes and added them to his inventory, simultaneously leveling up. Days passed as Wu hunted jackalopes, his level eventually reaching 6. However, as his level increased, the experience offered by these low-level monsters decreased. He concluded that hunting jackalopes had become pointless for gaining experience and decided it was time to hunt higher-level monsters. Although the original game design gave players only one undistributed attribute point per level. In this world, warriors typically boosted their strength, assassins honed their accuracy, and magicians elevated their intelligence. Wu pondered which attribute to enhance. As he looked up, a gigantic creature in the distance caught his eye, shocking him. It was the Jackalope King, a level 10 prairie wild boss with a horn as hard as steel. Known as a D-level creature, its special ability was Bouncing Crash. Staring at it as it consumed a boar, Wu felt a jolt of fear. The Jackalope King was the first boss he'd designed for new players in this fantasy world. With its high HP, resilient skin, and terrifying speed, it was a nightmare for novices. The only realistic strategy for rookies and low-level players was to use a bow to attack it from a distance. Regrettably, all he had was a shovel, leaving him regretting his initial design. Deciding on agility, Wu added his 6 undistributed points, raising it to 21. As a demon player, he was physically superior to an average novice. For the pride of a demon, he resolved to challenge the Jackalope King. However, he quickly retreated, jesting that he was kidding, and derided the jackalopes as a bunch of stupid rabbits. Enraged, the Jackalope King bellowed. Wu retorted, questioning whether it truly thought he would fight and reminding it of his numerical disadvantage. The jackalopes emerged from their burrows, chasing after him, led by the Jackalope King. The king prepared to use its Bouncing Crash to impale him with its horn. Wu sidestepped in the nick of time, narrowly avoiding a second attempt as well. He taunted the king, effortlessly evading its subsequent strikes, all while daring it to land a hit, his high agility allowing him to dodge effortlessly. Furious, the king summoned the jackalopes and ordered them to attack. Wu halted upon hearing the noise and turned back to see a horde of jackalopes led by the king hot on his trail, making him panic. In a stuttering voice, he alerted others that the wild boss, the Jackalope King, had appeared and advised them to retreat swiftly. However, instead of fleeing, the other players seemed thrilled at the opportunity to secure rare loot dropped by the king. They assured Wu that they'd join him, but rather than aiding him, they were also pursued by the Jackalope pack. The players cursed Wu, but he merely grinned, excusing himself to prepare a meal for his child. He bid them farewell, leaving them baffled by his impressive speed and swearing vengeance on him for their current predicament.